Hi everyone, it's me, Sandy Cruz of Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. For years now, I've been bringing to you conversations about wellness from incredible guests from all over the world. Discover a fresh take on healthy living for midlife and beyond, one that embraces balance and reason, without letting only science dictate every aspect of our wellness. Join me and my guests as we explore ways that we can age gracefully with in-depth conversations about the thyroid, about hormones, and other alternative wellness options for you and your family. True wellness nurtures a healthy body, mind, spirit, and soul. And we cover all of these essential aspects to help you live a balanced, joyful life. Be sure to follow my show, rate it, review it, and share it. Always remember, my friends, balanced living works. Hi everyone, welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today, my podcast is all about the 80s. It's actually not. I'm going to call this the Brat Pack Blueprint. And really, the context of this podcast is more about fear and why we live in so much fear now in this modern life as compared to how we lived in the 80s. And I'll tell you how this came about. I started looking at my old pictures and I was sending some photos to some friends from high school who I still keep in touch with. And I was looking at the photos and going, God, like we were so different. Of course, I'm a 56-year-old woman now. I'm not 16 anymore. But I look at society, the world, and the way that our youth is now as compared to back then. And the facts are that as Gen X, as, brat pack society in real life, we didn't have as much fear as people do now. And there are many reasons for this. And most of you know my podcast comes to you really from research that I do from body, mind, spirit, soul. Way back when I started my podcast over 6 years ago, I always questioned whether, we can rely on just science. And a lot of the people that I associated myself with were very scientific back then. And I always felt like I didn't fit in. And, that's my truth. And sometimes it takes a little bit of rejigging before you figure out where you do fit in. 6 years later, I'm doing what I want. I'm not chasing success. I'm not chasing the algorithm. I take on topics that I am generally curious about. And then I'm like, okay, let me put some context around this to see how I can help other people. So it's not about the guest and their expertise, because here are the facts. We live in a world of information where all of their research can be found. That's the truth. And it's not to minimize all the work that they may have done, because, listen, they've probably done a lot of work, but I like to take it from my perspective because it is objective. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to get you to do anything but listen to my podcast if it resonates with you. I'm also not trying to push myself at you. And if you find it's helpful, then please do share it, interact with my content, rate, review, wherever you're listening. Spotify and Apple are great places because it really helps me to reach more people. And that's what I'm here for. I'm living my purpose, and I hope that it's helpful for you. And if it is, share it. That's kind of your way of saying thank you. I come from this Gen X society where, we were taught to say please and thank you and have gratitude as opposed to just taking. So I'm going to get into this. I am going to ask you to follow me on all my social media channels. If this resonates, it's Sandy K Nutrition everywhere. I am a registered holistic nutritionist. I am trained in body, mind, spirit, soul wellness from a balanced perspective. And that's how I look at everything. So I'm going to set the stage here. And yes, every week I do create a script because sometimes I can go off the rails and I want to make this as useful for you as possible. Okay, so setting the stage here. Close your eyes and I want you to smell this. Okay, just see if you can smell this from the 80s. The floor wax, opening up that locker and smelling that stale locker air and that specific scent of a fresh cassette tape. Remember recording music off of a cassette, onto a cassette, I should say? And we were the real life Brat Pack. We didn't have a script or a brand or a PR team, which I still don't have. I created my own brand. I create my own scripts with the help of AI. Absolutely. I always am transparent about that, but it's my brain, my content that brings this to you. I also don't have a PR team. Basically, back then we had a hallway and we had each other, the people that were immediately around us at the time. I don't remember feeling intense fear back then. I don't remember that. And it wasn't because the world was safe. I mean, it was the opposite. We lived in houses that were painted with lead. We rode bikes without helmets. And we were secondhand smoked into oblivion. Listen, I smoked for 20 years until my 30s when I quit. We were unsupervised, we were unobserved, and honestly, we were unprotected back then. But that lack of protection is exactly what made us fearless. You don't need a psychologist who's an expert who wrote a book to know this. And if you are, a Gen X baby like I am, then you're going to know this. You don't need an expert to tell you this. We hung out in hallways because there was nowhere else to go. We poked fun at each other because that's how you tested who was real. We didn't have safe spaces. We had thick skin. We weren't curated. We were not filtered, and we weren't documenting every second to prove that we were having fun. We were just having it. And we were free in a way that didn't need explanation. Imperfect, unpolished, and uncurated. Today, we've traded that hallway grit for a 24/7 digital performance, and it is scaring us to death. We weren't waking up to headlines and crisis before breakfast. We were allowed to be young. We weren't performing and we were just becoming. I mean, think about it. Remember back in the day when let's say you were 16, you would come downstairs for breakfast, you would maybe get the morning paper delivered, and your parents would be sitting there just reading the paper, having a coffee, having a smoke at the kitchen table. I could actually feel it. And I'm sure many of you can too. So here we go. The diagnosis, the fear pandemic. So, why is your nervous system screaming? And I'm going to tell you, it's not a character flaw, it's a biological mismatch. I'm going to give you some points here that are taken from research. Mean World Syndrome. It's from Dr. George Gerbner. In the 80s, the news was a 30-minute block at 6 p.m. Think about it. Remember, you turn on the news, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and that was it. I mean, I used to watch Entertainment Tonight. I used to, oh no, it was the YNR Entertainment Tonight. Like lunchtime when I was really young, it was the Flintstones. Like the news was not on constantly. And today, it's a ticker tape that's in your pocket all the time. Gerbner's research proves that constant crisis media tricks your brain into thinking that the world is a war zone, even when you're sitting in your living room. You're in chronic fight or flight because your phone says you should be. In the 80s, you were anonymous, right? Today, the permanent record is very real. When you feel watched, you stop becoming and you start performing. That performance is a metabolic drain that leaves your fear threshold on the floor. Then there's the safety paradox, Jonathan Haidt. We've traded grit for safetyism. Resilience is a muscle. In the 80s, when you figured it out in the hallway, we were training our nervous systems, and today we've protected ourselves into a state of permanent fragility. Now, I'm going to give you a little aside here. This is my dad's 89-year-old wisdom, and this goes against what I have said in the past. And I am going to say we all reserve the right to change our minds. And I say this because first of all, we're not robots, right? We're not robots. We're always changing. And when you are an open individual, you're open to learning from the world, from others, from people around you, from, even upcoming research, whatever it is. The facts are we are always changing. And if you're not, maybe think about becoming a little more open. I was talking to my dad recently, and he's actually going to be 89 years old soon. And he's seen the world shift from analog grit to digital fear. I mean, he's so cute. He's like, he will go on YouTube, but he watches music videos and listens to music from Croatia. He's just the cutest man alive. And he still lives in his own home. He's still doing great. That, my friends, is longevity without the hacks, just so you know. And he told me something, and he says this regularly, and it's an absolute key to the problem. He said to me, the less I know, the better off I am. And that's a quote from my 89-year-old dad. In our stay informed culture, that sounds like hearsay. It sounds like burying your head in the sand, which I've said before. But I want to challenge that because my dad is tapping into a biological boundary that we have completely demolished. And I think here is where balance is really needed. And I always talk about balance. You definitely don't want to completely bury your head in the sand. But, at what point is it affecting your health, your nervous system, that you're like living in fear all the time? So, the case for strategic ignorance. In the 80s, we weren't burying our heads. We were living within a natural human information capacity. Research shows that the human brain has a limit to how much crisis data it can process. And when you exceed it, you enter cognitive paralysis. You have awareness without agency. You know about the disaster 6,000 miles away, but you can't fix it. That leads to learned helplessness. My dad isn't being lazy. He's protecting his mitochondrial energy. He's refusing to let his internal battery be drained by external noise that he can't change. He's staying in his hallway. Maybe burying your head in the sand isn't a sign of weakness. Maybe it's the ultimate act of 80s style rebellion. So the protocol, reclaiming your grit, eliminating that fear. You know, every podcast that I have, I always want to give you something to take away with, right? So how do we remove this fear? We stop acting like we're made of glass and we start filtering our world again. So, this is the 5 mile morning. This is the dad rule. For the first 3 hours of your day, your world only extends 5 miles. No global news, no social media. If it's not in your actual hallway, it doesn't exist. So, reclaim your internal locus of control. I get it. It's hard. I live in this world of digital media. I live here. So it's very difficult to do 3 hours. But even if it's for the first 15 minutes, half hour, and then instead of looking at the daily news, maybe start by, catching up on your emails or something not so nervous system um, tapping. Okay. Not something that's constantly hurting your nervous system that you can't do anything about, which is, let's face it, world news, right? Like, you can do something about your emails. You can respond to them or you can send a little text. I personally, I'll tell you how I start my day every day. My best friend, who I've been best friends with and still am since we were five, I think 5 or 6. I was 5 or 6. Can you imagine? I'm 56 years old. She calls me or I call her every single morning, unless, of course, we have an appointment or something. And we start our day with a little debrief and a little catch up. And whether it's that I need to be a support for her or she needs to be a support for me, or maybe it's just laughing and joking. This is how I start my day. And it's beautiful. If you can find somebody or have somebody like that, start that, even if it's a 15-minute conversation. So you can obviously play around with that 5 mile morning. Number 2, the ghost mode weekend. Remind your brain what it feels like to be unobserved. Stop documenting, stop sharing, collapse the audience effect, and let your nervous system experience the ease of being uncurated. Listen, I should follow my own advice, but I've been on Instagram as Sandy K Nutrition. I think it's going to, I think this summer it's going to be 10 years. So some of us can't do that. We can't disappear because then everything disappears. Our podcast disappears, our audience disappears. And clearly, I'm no celebrity or anything, but it's kind of like that. You know, you have to be really cognizant if you have a platform to just disappear. However, if you have a personal social media, which most of you do, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, you can do this. And I do this. I rarely document personal aspects of my weekend, of my life on my personal social media. I do it on my business because I kind of have to. Otherwise, my business would disappear. So try that because really, you know, why does everybody have to know it's your 25th wedding anniversary on your personal account? I've done it. We've all done it. But you're like, why? Why do we do that? So that's something to think about. And I'm not being a hypocrite here because I have done that for sure. But now I'm going to think about this a little bit more. Now, this is interesting. Metabolic sovereignty, Dr. Chris Palmer. Fear is high energy. If your blood sugar, because a lot of you who are listening are, over 50 and you've got issues with your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is a roller coaster, you will be afraid of everything. In the 80s, we ate real meals. We didn't anxiety graze on processed chemicals all day. So stabilize your biology to stabilize your mind. And I have done podcasts about this where I've talked about, my grandparents. They were old school farmers living in Croatia, eating off the land. They didn't eat all day long. Like a lot of people do that. It's like stress grazing. You're eating all the time. So think about that. And now I'm going to get into the figure it out mandate. This is the last point. Once a week, do something without a digital crutch. Get lost without GPS. Fix something without a video. Every time you figure it out on your own, you are sending a signal to your amygdala in the brain. I'm capable. I am safe. That is how you kill fear, through competence. And so there's a lot I could say about that right here. My daughter, who's brilliant, independent, and just an amazing young woman, she said to me, Mom, stop using AI, stop using ChatGPT, stop, because it's making our world dumber. And I looked at her and I'm like, you know what? Like, you're amazing that you are in this youthful group in your 20s and you're telling me this. And she's right. I don't drive without Waze on. And it's not necessarily, it's not because I don't know how to get there. It's because I want to prevent getting caught by the cops for speeding. And I'm like, it's like we're constantly using digital help. And I even remember my kids are older, they're in their 20s. I remember having friends who would do all their homework, the kids' homework with them every single night. I never did that. I'm like, no, you got to do that yourself. This is not something for me to help you with. And I'm happy that I did that. I also recall my kids, they played competitive sports all throughout their youth. And I remember one parent pulling her daughter out of competitive cheerleading. This is like intense competitive cheerleading because the coach raised his voice at her. And I'm like, crap. Like, there's a difference between abuse and helping somebody build strength and resiliency. And when you're doing something competitive, sometimes you get a little intense. And so imagine if that young woman, God knows where she is now, imagine she gets married and she's in, a very healthy relationship, but her spouse one day raises his voice and she can't handle it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's constantly about a balance. I'm going to close. So, freedom. Freedom. The freedom from constant fear shapes you. It builds resilience. It builds confidence. It teaches your nervous system what ease feels like. So, isn't it time that we remember this? Sometimes we have to go back to pieces of the old in order to recreate a better new. So, it's pretty impossible to go backwards. You can't take away how much the world has advanced, but you can still bring some of the tools. And me, as a Gen X, it's my job on who I am, Sandy K Nutrition, to share and remind those who are interested in creating a better world for themselves because the world is messy. It was even messy back then. And so are you. So if you stop performing for an audience that isn't even looking, you know, it's kind of better. Like, get off your phone, get back to the grit, start becoming the uncurated version of yourself again, and create some sort of a hybrid for yourself. I hope that was helpful. I thank you all so much for being here each and every week. I appreciate you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow wherever you are listening or watching, and share this with a friend. And I will see you next week. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know might benefit. And always remember, when you rate, review, subscribe, you help to support my content and help me to keep going and bringing these conversations to you each and every week. Join me next week for a new topic, new guest, new exciting conversations to help you live your best life.